Torrential rains occur every year and cause major disasters. Due to global warming, these events are predicted to become more frequent, with the damage from them also growing more severe. The heavy rains that hit western Japan in July 2018 were the worst in the past 30 years and caused tremendous damage. In addition, the Reiwa First East Japan typhoon brought heavy rains to the Kanto, Koshin, and Tohoku regions and caused heavy damage there. These kinds of disasters could occur anywhere in Japan, and they could happen to any of us at any time, too. In this video, you will learn about sediment disasters, their particular features, and what you can do to protect your life. Please think about your own situation as you watch the video so that you can protect your own life in the event of a sediment disaster. Sediment disasters happen when typhoons or heavy rains cause a large amount of water to permeate the ground, which then becomes loose and slides. Sediment disasters can be roughly divided into three types of slope failures, landslides, and debris flows, and the locations where each is likely to occur are different. First, it is important to know if your home is located in one of these hazardous places. Slope failures occur on steep slopes. Slope failures are a phenomenon where the slope becomes saturated with rainwater. The ground close to the surface becomes loose, and the slope abruptly falls away. Slope failures occur very quickly, making it impossible to escape after one starts. Sometimes cars driving by get caught in slope failures. During times of heavy rain, or when sediment disaster alert information has been announced, it's important to make the decision to take a detour to avoid taking roads near slopes whenever possible. This example shows a slope failure in the mountains, but slope failures can also occur on land that has been filled for residential development, so you need to use caution. Landslides are a phenomenon where clay and other layers of the ground that are prone to slipping move slowly across a wide area due to factors including an increase in underground water from heavy rains. Landslides also occur on relatively gentle slopes. This video captures a slope collapsing from a landslide. The landslide is slow-moving, but when the slope becomes unstable, it can also suddenly collapse like in the video. Debris flows are a phenomenon that occurs due to continuous rain or torrential rain when soil and rocks on a hillside or riverbed come sliding down, mix with water, and abruptly flow downstream while gaining momentum. This video captures a debris flow. The debris flow, led first by large rocks, comes down at a speed of some 40 kilometers an hour. Its immense power destroys homes and fields in an instant. Places near the opening to valleys are more likely to experience damage from debris flows. The debris flow flowed down the riverbed and fanned out at the opening to the valley, causing damage to the surrounding area. Places near the opening to valleys will be directly hit by debris flows, so they require extra caution. Fallen trees that have been uprooted by a slope failure or debris flow can flow down and block the flow of a river, causing a flood. So even if your home is not in a location where a sediment disaster occurred, there are still hazards from secondary water disasters like this. Sometimes there are advance warning signs before a sediment disaster occurs. For example, if you notice conditions are different than usual, like muddy water flowing out of a slope, the smell of earth, or sounds coming from the mountain or hillside, paying attention to them as precursors to a sediment disaster can end up saving your life. The The heavy rains of July 2018 mainly hit western Japan and caused more than 200 deaths and missing persons, as well as severe damage. In Hiroshima Prefecture, there was widespread damage from sediment disasters, including slope failures and debris flows, and 87 people lost their lives in these sediment disasters. These are stories from people who experienced the disasters.
なんかちょっと様子おかしいなと思って2階から窓の外を見てみると裏駐車場なんですけど、その駐車場に泥水がわーっと流れてきてまして、もうこれは本当に異常なことが起きてるなっていうのがすぐ判断できましたので、あとそうですね30分遅れてたらちょっと出にくい状況になってたかなと思います。3時半ぐらいですかね、山が急に変な音がしました。もう本当にキシキシキシキシってもう今まで聞いたことがないような山がわーっと崩れて、土石流がわーっと流れて2階建ての我が家を飲み込んでいきました。だんだんこう朝が明けてきまして、外を見てみるともう今まで見たことのないような光景が広がっておりました。本当にすごく怖かったですね。もう次はここも流されて、きっと私たちも命は落とすかもしれないなっていう恐怖があったんで、ものすごく怖かったです。
帰るとすごい土の匂いがしてると。でその時に町内会長さんが各家をこう回られてですね、一軒ずつ避難してくださいということを言われてたんで、
何が起こるかわからないということで、現場視察のような感じで来た時に、島津さんと会って、それでのり面からかなり濁った水が出てると。
水と一緒に今度は枝とかですね、小石とかがどんどん流れ始めてきて、でこの幅っていうのがどんどん広がって、今こう V の字になってますけど、この平行なところに全体にこう広がって、全部のところで幅で出てくると。土砂崩れが起こってから逃げていってしまったと。で暗い時に逃げてしまった。明るい時に行動ができたんですけど、それをしなかったっていうのはちょっと自分の反省ではありますね。もうバタバタでしたね。もうすぐに崩れるとは思ってなかったので、そのドンという音を聞いてまた慌ててしまって、でもう財布しか、僕は財布と携帯だけでしたね、持ち出したのは。絶対ここのどっかでここは大丈夫だろうというところがあったと私の中で思ってます。
It is too late to evacuate after a sediment disaster has occurred. Thinking you'll be fine where you are, or that this time will be fine again, delays your decision to evacuate. To protect yourself from sediment disasters, it's important to evacuate early, before the disaster happens. To protect your life in a sediment disaster, it's important to regularly think through how you would evacuate when evacuation information is issued or when you sense physical danger. First of all, check the disaster risk where you live using the Sediment Disaster Hazard Map put out by your local government. Sediment disaster hazard maps show the area at risk of a sediment disaster from heavy rain or other phenomenon, the evacuation sites, and areas of danger when evacuating. Check to see if where you live is inside a sediment disaster hazard zone. Next, decide what evacuation action to take in an emergency. If your home is in a sediment disaster hazard zone, the action to take when a warning level 4 evacuation advisory is issued is essentially to evacuate away from your home. If you have a place such as a relative's or acquaintance's house or a hotel to evacuate to, go there immediately. If you do not have another place to evacuate to, go to a designated emergency evacuation site. However, if a warning level 5 is issued, a disaster is already occurring and it may be too dangerous to try to get to an evacuation site. Take the best action you can to protect your life at the time, such as moving to a safer location or building, a sturdier building near you, or a safer location inside your home. As the name Designated Emergency Evacuation Site implies, these are places to evacuate to in an emergency when there is imminent danger from a disaster. If a disaster does occur and you need to continue the evacuation for some time, you can stay at a designated shelter, which is prepared to shelter people for a certain length of time. Outside zones that have disaster dangers, there are also many facilities that serve both functions. Even inside a sediment disaster hazard zone or danger area, if you live in a sturdy building such as multifamily housing made of reinforced concrete, and you have clearly determined that you can remain safe, you may also remain in your home. In this case, make a vertical evacuation, moving to a room on the second floor or higher on the opposite side of the mountain or slope, and make all possible preparations. Moreover, if there is a mountain or slope nearby, you must remain alert even if your home is outside the sediment disaster hazard zone. Watch for evacuation information and disaster and weather information from the government and take the necessary evacuation action. To evacuate means to avoid danger. In other words, to ensure your safety. People who are in a safe place do not need to evacuate. To make it easier to make evacuation decisions, we have made a pamphlet about the right evacuation action to take according to where your home is located. So please use this pamphlet. To make it easy for residents to understand the right evacuation action to take and when to evacuate, the evacuation actions that residents should take are divided into 5 warning levels corresponding to the danger of a disaster occurring. The information to guide evacuation actions, such as evacuation advisories, is made clear to make it intuitively easy to understand what action should be taken based on the issued information. Disaster prevention and weather information, such as information on heavy rains announced by the Meteorological Agency, is also released corresponding to the warning levels to provide useful guidance when evacuating at an early stage. This information is called information corresponding to the warning levels. Information corresponding to the warning levels is announced for a wide area of an entire municipality or river, but evacuation information, such as evacuation advisories, take into account local conditions and in principle are issued for more specific areas, such as school districts or local districts. For example, even if sediment disaster alert information has been issued for your municipality, areas near cliffs and slopes have increased danger of a sediment disaster. But areas far away from them do not have increased danger of a sediment disaster. Find out in advance the risk of a disaster occurring in your area and use the information corresponding to the warning levels to decide on your own whether to evacuate at an early stage. At warning level 1, stay alert for the latest weather and other information. At warning level 2, check your hazard map and find out where to evacuate to and the route to the evacuation site. Flood advisories and heavy rain advisories are announced by the Meteorological Agency. When your municipality issues preparation for evacuation information, this is warning level 3. The elderly and others who need time to evacuate should evacuate, and everyone else should begin preparing to evacuate. Flood alerts, flood warnings, and heavy rain warnings are announced as information corresponding to the warning level. When your municipality issues an evacuation advisory, this is warning level 4. Not only the elderly, but everyone should evacuate to a safe place away from the danger of flood and sediment disasters. If the danger level rises, evacuation warnings may be issued, but evacuation warnings are not always issued. It is important to take action when an evacuation advisory is issued. Flood danger and sediment disaster alerts are announced as information corresponding to the warning level. When your municipality issues disaster occurrence information, this is warning level 5. A disaster is already occurring in your area. It may be too dangerous to try to get to an evacuation site. Take the best action you can at the time to protect your life. flood events and heavy rain emergency warnings are announced as information corresponding to the warning level. Evacuation information may not always be issued in time. Pay attention to the information released corresponding to the warning level, and do not wait for evacuation information to be issued from your municipality, but instead try to make your own decision about what evacuation action to take. Do not think you are safe because a Level 5 warning has not yet been issued. Complete your evacuation while it is still possible at Warning Level 4. To make sure that everyone can evacuate safely, all residents need to think about disasters as something that could happen to them. Regularly check your local hazard map together with your family and neighbors and find out where to evacuate to, what route to take during an evacuation, and how long it takes to get to the evacuation site. Sediment disasters are more likely to occur when a large amount of rain has fallen and the volume of underground water has increased. Mesh information for sediment disaster warnings is color-coded using a 5-level system that is displayed on 1 kilometer squares on a map where there is increased danger of a sediment disaster occurring. This allows you to get pinpoint information about the increased danger in the local district where you live. You can check this information on the Meteorological Agency's website. When you evacuate is important. Pay attention to evacuation information, including from TV news, the emergency broadcast system, and area email alerts, and look for disaster preparedness information on the internet and elsewhere, keeping in mind to evacuate at an early stage. Evacuation information may not always be issued in time. Pay attention to rain and river information, and remember to use your own judgment in deciding to evacuate without waiting for evacuation information. Making a disaster and evacuation card is an effective way to be better prepared to evacuate in an emergency. When a community discusses the evacuation actions to take in an emergency, including the route to take to the evacuation site, areas of danger along the route, the right time to evacuate, and how to help people with special needs, and community residents make their own cards with this information, they are less likely to panic when a disaster is imminent and take the right action. Disaster and evacuation cards can take a variety of sizes and formats. The website of the Cabinet Office of Japan publishes examples of these cards from local governments that are already using them. Using these as guides, try making your own disaster and evacuation card. Seek out opportunities to participate in local disaster preparedness drills. If you take part in a simulation of an evacuation, you will be better prepared to make decisions and take actions calmly in an emergency. How to provide support and what roles to perform in evacuating the elderly, people with disabilities, and other people with special needs should be planned together with care managers, and this should be a part of the disaster preparedness planning for the entire community. Protect your own life yourself. Don't worry about overreacting. At Warning Level 3, the elderly and others who need time evacuates. At Warning Level 4, everyone evacuates. Talk to your family regularly about what to do in an evacuation so that everyone can take the proper action. Communities need to decide their evacuation rules, with everyone in the community taking action to protect their own life themselves.